I don't want to record. I told it to. There we go.
Now it is.
Now
Okay.
it's recording. I can barely read. I need my glasses. Okay, so we have 6 attendees. Is everyone able to get up your attendee screens? If you go to the bottom, it says participants. If you click on that, you can see panelists, which is you, and attendees, which is the audience.
I see invite.
Go to the bottom. When you get that little bar that comes.
Oh, I see it. Yeah. Okay.
Participant. And then
Okay.
that way you can see when hands are raised.
Okay. I'm going to shut the door. So should I mute myself?
If you want to, but I do have to do a roll, call, so you may want to stay
okay.
unmuted for a little bit.
Okay. Oh, I see. Oh, Jerry Holand's with us today. Good.
There we go. I'm going to make her a panelist. Seems to have a delay. There she is. Okay.
Unmute video. I am.
Hillary, whenever you're ready.
Oh, okay. So we're not waiting for anyone else. All right. All right. So this is the Heritage Preservation Board meeting. It's Monday, February 28th, 2022. I'll start by calling roll. Sonia Gallant.
Present.
Lelia Langto.
Present.
Hillary Culhane, Chair, present. Richard Storick is absent. Carol Goldberg.
Present.
Yes. All right. All right. So I guess we'll open it up for anyone who wants to address issues that are not on tonight's agenda. We'll hear public comments for things going on in the community that are not specific to this agenda tonight. Are there any hands raised?
I see no hands raised.
Okay. All right, then let's move on to the planning staff's oral report.
So this is application heritage design review variance and heritage tree removal 2135 for 9 Murray Lane. This was previously heard by the board on February 10th, 2022. As proposed, they would like to complete extensive remodeling and additions to a listed historic residence at 9 Murray. This includes demo of historic cottage in the rear yard, maintenance of existing non-conforming carport, a new storage room at the rear of the carport, extensive site work, including front circular driveway, a pool and equipment building, and a bocce court in the rear yard, or bocce. Total square footage proposed is 5,666 square feet with a 0.36 FAR, where 0.40 is permitted. During review of this project on February 10th, the board did have some concerns, I think steered in part by the historic architect's evaluation of the project. Some of the details were not found to be in compliance with the Secretary of the Interior standards. And the board went through those details with the applicant and then moved to continue the project and requested some revisions to the plans in order to bring it into greater conformance. Based on the revised plans that we received on February 15th and February 24th, the applicant has included the following revisions. The northwest front end of the proposed addition has been lowered 2 foot 6 inches. For the first 11 feet, the building then steps back up to 28 feet 6 inches. And the intent of reducing that front portion is to reduce the massing adjacent to the historic cottage or home. The historic east front porch is now proposed to be restored back to its original configuration and design. And I did include a picture of that I took out of the applicant's video, so you could see what it should essentially look like when it's complete. And the north facade of the cottage is proposed to be installed. The cottage is being demolished on the east side of the carport in the storage shed. So the applicant is attempting to maintain some source of history by doing so, because this building or what this original home was part of a whole enclave of small cottages that were once rented by the family. The consulting historic architect has reviewed the revised plans and has determined they're generally in conformance with the Secretary of the Interior standards. But in addition, she did make some additional recommendations she thought might maintain the building in even greater conformance with its historic character. One would be that the massing at the front of the addition should be further reduced adjacent to the cottage. The other is that the original north door should be retained and restored. This is where you had agreed to allow the removal of the north porch roof, but the doorway, which I think they referred to as the short door several times, the historic architect is indicating that because this is a primary elevation, that door should be retained. They could fix it in place and create a bathroom inside without having to use that door in any way. It's just she wants the historic facade to be retained. One thing I did note, though, that wasn't done was that the board had asked for the retention of the decking for the north porch, and that is not included on the plans, as is the roof has been removed per your agreement. So based on this, I think at this point, staff needs to have a further discussion with the applicant and yourselves, and then follow one of the potential options provided in your staff report for a motion. Either approve as proposed, recommend approval subject to additional conditions, or recommend denial.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Well, I think it's probably time to open it up to, I would say, the applicant. I think Jared Polsky, I saw his name on the list of participants. So if he's there and would like to speak, maybe now would be a good time.
I did not attach the plans. Let me do that. Jared, you're welcome to speak. I'll allow you to talk.
I have my plans here, so.
Can you guys hear us? Hello, can you hear us?
Yes.
Yes.
Hi. This is Amy Wu. I don't know if you guys can see us. I don't know if we're on screen or not.
I can make you on screen. Would you like to see them?
Yeah.
Sure.
Yes. I have to promote them to panelists.
Okay.
I'm panelist, Tyler.
It takes a minute for it to happen.
Blue button.
There we go. I think you're a panelist now. Yeah. Are they visible?
Not to me.
So
yeah, and I
looks
think
like
they're.
Oh,
there
now
we go.
they are.
Okay.
Now it's okay.
Yes, and you can hear us.
Hello.
Hello.
Hey, everybody.
Hi.
Jerry, I don't know. Oh, sorry, not Jerry. Kristen. Yep.
Mhm.
Thank you. So I just want to say thank you again for seeing us again this afternoon. We took our directives from our meeting from last time, and I wanted to try and see if we could organize our thoughts in a way that is easy and makes our review and our conversation go smoothly and efficiently. So I put together a few slides here that just to sort of help drive the conversation. Jerry, if you can, or Kristen, sorry, if you can go to the next slide. So we left our meeting last time with what we understood to be 4 listings or 4 points that you wanted us to go look at. And I've ranked them here in the overview in order of priority. So number 1 was the massing. And this is, I think, what we took as the board's directive in terms of your priority. So number 1 was the massing of the proposed new addition. Number 2 was the reconstruction of the east porch to the original design. Number 3 was the preservation of the north facade of the cottage. And number 4 was the west porch preservation and reconsideration. And so I wanted to take you through how we've talked through each of those. And based on Ms. Hulan's report and the fact that she's in agreement that the project now generally meets the standards, I'm not sure we need to go through everything in detail, but it is here. And I'm happy to talk you through it if you want to talk more about it. But I thought that we could focus our conversations on the recommendations that she attached to her latest report, which were number 1, the massing, and then the new door, which I think what we're sort of considering to be part of the west porch piece. I did want to ask a question that you just mentioned, Kristen, about the north decking. That was something that we kind of all looked at each other around the table and were a little confused as to exactly what that meant. Do you mind explaining that a little bit further? Or maybe we missed something, but that was something that we weren't quite sure exactly what you meant by that.
What I have in my notes in the motion is that the board had asked that the deck of the porch, the north porch, be retained, not the roof. So that's something you can take up with the board. And this was, this was a suggestion, recommendation.
Okay. So what we've done is we took all of your considerations and all of your feedback very seriously, and we sat down and redesigned things as you guys suggested. So we've submitted new documents, which we believe are in conformance with all of your recommendations. We also erected story poles at the request of the city, and I hope that all of you have had a chance to go visit and walk the site a little bit with those story poles. I did so myself the other day, took a lot of pictures, which are what is included here. We're trying in earnest in order to get this project to be aligned with everybody's wishes. And our goal is to find a path forward on this in the partnership with the city of Larkspur. And we really just want to reiterate that it's really crucial that we continue to move this forward, because as we beat through everybody's mind at the last meeting, this house is deteriorating with every day. And we feel that every day that our project continues to be outstanding is further risk to this historical artifact that we know that we all want to have preserved. So with that, I'll take it into the next slide, Kristen, which is our conversation that we had on the massing. So as the report suggests, we did reduce the scale and the size of the addition and recommendations with Ms. Hulan's report. We've erected story poles, which again, I hope everybody had a chance to visit. We've taken the square footage of the overall house down from the original plan. The one thing I wanted to add is that also in exhibits A and B, or pictures on there, you can see where the number A is the new north elevation with its reduced addition. And we modeled that off of number B, which was the proposal in the report from Ms. Hulan's report dated November 2021. The entrance has been shifted a little bit from that recommendation in order to allow the front door to be centered with the rest of the house. And we thought that that was something that aesthetically and was more aesthetically pleasing for just the designer of overall house and would have some symmetry as you face the house, facing it from the street. What I would like to point out is exhibit C and D, the pictures there. So these are the views of the perspective that you would see, including the story poles, as you walk up or drive up Murray Lane. So C shows you the property line, from the view of the property line from the very beginning of 9 Murray Lane. And the point that I would like to make here is that when you're standing on the property line, you can't see actually the story poles in this photo, which to me shows, unfortunately, there's a storage pod there. The current renters are in the process of moving out, but where that white box is where the east porch would be, the newly constructed east porch. So the point I'd like to make here is that when you're really looking at the property from its property line, what you see is the historic farmhouse. You'll see the beautifully reconstructed each porch. Not captured in this photo, but off to the left-hand side a little bit is the two-story farmhouse. So from our point of view, the beacon, the historical artifact as you approach this house really truly is the original farmhouse and what will be this newly reconstructed porch. D is the view a little bit further back. So D is the view from our neighbor's property line, so 5 Murray Lane. And if you look closely, I'm sorry, the pictures are a little small, but if you look closely, you can see the orange flags in the center, and they hover just above the historical property that we see that stands there today. So our hope, and I can't say E, is where a view straight on, you can see the story poles as they are shown today of what is only the new addition. So our hope is, and what we would like to ask for is that the massing is something that we've addressed, we've looked at, and really the design from as you approach the house does really highlight the historical artifact as it is today. And in order to see the addition that we're proposing and its massing, one would need to really be standing. This view in Exhibit E is taken from inside our property. So from the outside, there's foliage covering it. This is something that you would only really truly see as you're standing on the property. We think that the redesign highlights the farmhouse as you approach and isn't something that is overwhelming as we've redesigned it today. Any thoughts, questions? Oh, sorry, Jared. We also wanted to hand something over to Jared just to add a little bit of color, something that more detail.
Well, I wanted to, can you hear me?
Yes.
I wanted to briefly talk about the reduced massing. First of all, we're hoping to we're lowering the ridge of the front entry portion 2'8" from the existing. Well, we followed Jerry's suggestion. We separated the entry portion from the rest of the roof. And we're able to lower it, like I said, 2'8". And we set the plate heights, the tops of the walls at the second story at 7'6" above the floor, which is really a low plate height, lower than we would have liked. And then we have the roof, the 8 and 12 roof slope to sort of work with the 12 and 12 existing roof slopes on the existing house. I wouldn't want to lower the slope. So we've set the plate height, we have this slope, and the rest is just geometry. It's not really a function of how high the ceiling is inside the room above. It's more, this is geometry. Here's the slopes that we have. This is about a lower plate height as we could go. We could lower it an inch or two more, but not much. And if we lower it much more, we'll be banging our heads against the sides of the walls. So, and one of the things that Ms. Hollande mentioned is that it's exacerbated because you step up to the entrance. Well, actually you step down to the entrance. Because the entrance is lower than the roadway. And so I don't think it's exacerbated by stepping up. I think it's actually diminished by stepping down to the entrance. I hope that you see that all these design changes are in the spirit of what we're being asked to follow. We are meeting in general conformance with the guidelines. And I hope you can approve us tonight. Thank you.
Right.
Do you want to keep going, or do you want to have a discussion on the massing piece?
Pardon? Okay,
we'll move forward. Next page is addressing the east porch. I think we're all in agreement here. The porch has been redesigned per Ms. Houlan's recommendation. It looks great. It looks beautiful. It extends all the way to the edge of the house. As I think the picture I included here is just the Murray family in front of it, but I think the picture that Kristen attached into the staff report shows the porch and it attaching to the side of the two-story farmhouse. So I think hopefully this isn't a piece that is needs further discussion. So next is the preservation of the cottage. We've moved the cottage facade onto the existing carport. It now, per Ms. Houlan's report, maintains its integrity as functioning as a separate structure. It also maintains its distance as it currently stands today from the historic farmhouse. And then I've also just included some pictures to show what the visual front of the cottage looks like today. That's in Exhibit A. So I just wanted to point out that the view of the cottage today from across Murray Lane, when I took this picture, I was actually standing in the neighbor's driveway that is across Murray Lane. It's covered by foliage. So in order to see the cottage today, you actually have to go into our property and walk around in order to get a full frontal view of the cottage. So I just wanted to make that clear because I think there was some questions last time as to whether or not the cottage today was visible from the street. It does face the street, but as a passerby views it today, it's not visible. And in where the seasonal, where we are, the foliage should be at its low point. So this is even more full in the winter. Next. So next is the west porch.
Do I go down?
Yes, please. Thank you. So next is the west porch preservation. And what we would also include here is the decking, I guess, is where you see all the storage bins of our renters. Like I said, they're in the process of moving out, but that's the decking. This is a view of the porch as it stands today. As you can see, it slopes to the side, the tar paper roof that we discussed a lot in the last meeting. It's unfortunately in very poor shape. It sounds like we're in agreement to be able to remove the porch awning piece of it, which is wonderful. Our argument on the decking is that I just don't know if that there's a need for it necessarily if there's no porch there. We'd like to proceed with also removing the door. I don't know if anybody else here has anything to add to that. The door is short. The door doesn't necessarily, it's not going to be functional, but anybody else have anything to add on that?
The door is just over 6 feet tall and in terrible condition.
So that's what I had. Happy to discuss, happy to answer any questions. Thank you guys for your consideration for all of this. And please note, we're trying to work hard to get this done. We care about this project. We really want it to move forward. If anything, also to make sure that this project gets done and built so we can continue to ensure that this historical artifact is preserved.
Okay,
and I think the only other point just that was, you know, that was brought up last time was just around what are the considerations. And, you know, I think one of the things that we looked up afterwards, just as a point of clarification for our own education, was it seemed like economics and financial feasibility is a consideration per the code. It's not the only consideration, but it is a consideration. And I hope that the efforts we've made, you know, to invest behind the east porch, which is not insignificant, moving the cottage on the side of the carport, which increased costs too. Hopefully, you know, that's recognized as a consideration, not the only consideration as you consider our project. And we appreciate everybody making time for us again today. I know you all are very busy, and to see the Wu family 2 times in a month, you probably have higher priorities in your lives. So we certainly appreciate the time you're carving out for us again this evening.
Okay, thank you. Kristen, do you think it's time to turn it over for public comment? Are there people in the waiting room?
Does any of the board members have questions of the applicant?
Well, I had one question about the porch that's going to be kept and rejuvenated. Will that be an entrance porch, or is it just kind of a side porch to the house, the entrance from the house only, or will there be stairs leading up?
There will be stairs, and the porch will be rebuilt as the picture. I don't know, Kristen, if you want to flip back to what the design was. There should be stairs leading up to it, but
oh, okay.
Yeah, it leads into what is currently slated for bedrooms. So the formal entrance to the house is actually physically on 9 Murray Lane, which is right there where the
right. Thank you.
I have a question.
It is a, you know, I wouldn't call it retaining area. We're basically rebuilding a brand new porch that mimics the historical look and feel, but the actual porch today is a different one.
Okay, I have a question related to the porch, and maybe this could be addressed by Jared or Jerry. Just in reviewing the photo that Kristen had circulated along with previous photos of that porch and the family, there were shutters on the windows. And I don't know if, I don't see them on the drawing, and I don't know if those are an essential part of the facade there. And maybe Jerry can speak to that. See how there's shutters on the windows?
Yeah, I do see that. And whether they are original in that photo or not, I have no way of knowing.
Yeah.
And you know, there's probably a lot of little bits and pieces that are missing. I mean, I think it'd be nice if the shutters got put back, but I'm not sure. You know, are the shutters around on all four sides of this old structure? Are they just on one side? I don't know. I mean, you know, I think it's a good question. On the other photo of the house, can you see the shutters behind on the door? You know, the original.
You can see them behind the people,
Right
the
here.
Murray family.
Yeah, because those I would definitely recommend restoring. I'm not sure about the window ones. I've got that photo in here. Kristen, do you have it on your screen?
The original, I think they had it in their PowerPoint, didn't they? Right there.
Oh, no, you know, I've got it here.
Yeah.
I've got an old black and white copy. It doesn't really show the photo that I have that's was used on the front of my original report. The wall behind the family doesn't show any shutters. So, you know, whether they were there and they were closed over the windows, that's what I can't tell.
Well, I think you see the spindle on the top of the porch there, just, yeah, right there, that dark rectangle there, that's a shutter. At least it looks like a shutter from.
It could be, yeah, because it looks better on that photograph than I have printed out here. That could be a shutter, but I don't see one on either sides of the door, although it could be closed for all we know.
Yeah, I think.
But I would think in the old days that they used those shutters quite a lot, you know, for protection from weathering and wind and rain. Yeah.
So I guess that was my only question, if the shutters should be a consideration, or because there's, I mean, it would just be that front that would have them, and the rest of the house, we don't know. And it may be something that we just let go, but I just wanted to raise that question.
Does somebody know the date of this photo?
This was from the applicants.
Right. Do any of the applicants know what date this photo comes from?
Not offhand. I don't know where we got this one. Not offhand. We would need to look.
Yeah,
well, probably before 1909, when Mr. Murray was still alive.
Yeah.
I'm not sure because he's not in the photograph. We did get photos also from some of his descendants, and the only photos that he could show were of mid-century. So we'd have to go back and look through our files to figure out exactly what this was.
In the Larkspur past and present, the photo is dated 1900.
Okay. Well, then there you go.
Oh, for what it's worth.
Yeah.
Okay. Does anyone else on the board have questions for the applicants and their architect?
Well, I would just like to thank them for the story polls. That made a big difference in looking at the lot and registering where things were. So I appreciate that.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
Thank you for coming by to look at it. We appreciate it.
I saw the movers there.
Yeah, it's 12. They have 12 years worth of stuff that they're trying to get out of there. So I think it's not insignificant.
Yeah.
This question's for Jerry. Jerry,
Okay.
when you talked about the carport and the cottage, did you want the roof line?
I did want the roof line, and I mean, 5 minutes before the meeting started, I got the drawings of the carport, and I'm wondering, Kristen, can we share those on your screen, or does Jared have them on his?
We're not allowed to share.
Yeah, so on these, they're keeping the same roof, and I think my concern is that it's a little, what do you call it? It's a little too low pitched. I mean, the roof that they're taking off is it looks like maybe an 8 to 12 roof. And I'm wondering if we can't recreate that. I have a number, while we're on the carport, I had a number of other concerns. I don't know if you want me to talk about them now or not.
Sure.
Okay, so if you look at the new east carport elevation, first thing is the door is missing, and I don't know if that's intentional or not, but I'd like the original door to be able to stay on there. It looks like it's.
We would include the door.
The door is.
Okay, so that should be spelled out on the plans. The other thing that I was going to suggest is that the facade itself be moved north, so that you don't have new siding on either side of it, so that the whole facade is closer to the street and it's just easier to see, and that you would have the new siding to the left, whatever remaining, width of the wall is, so that you don't have it split. It looks kind of weird sitting there in the middle. And I wanted to say something too in response to your slide there, that you can't see the cottage because of the trees. Trees are not really considered a screen. They're not permanent and they die. So we don't really ever consider trees when we're talking about a historic resource. So I think bringing the carport elevation a little bit, the original one, a little bit closer to the street, and not plopping it in the middle of the new siding, just putting it to one end of it might make that read better. And then I would like to have a better roof relationship. I don't know if you can reuse those roof rafters. I doubt it. But so that was my response, Carol. I agree with you.
So for the carport, so that will be now enclosed, right? Because currently it's just open. So there would be siding on all four sides of the carport.
It would become a garage.
Yeah.
So it'd become a garage. Okay.
Well,
it's open.
It's still.
I think the front is still open. The north is open, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Part of the south is open.
So this the south elevation is going to be partially open?
Yeah.
Okay.
Jared, do you have any comment on the roof line? I'm curious about that.
Well, we're trying to move this forward, and we're worried that if we reconstructed the roof, we're going to get other planning problems. So we're trying to keep it as low key and as close to the existing as possible.
Well, historic preservation is a really good reason for me to support a variance. It's written into our non-conforming structures regulations. I
mean, it'd be nice if you could replicate the roof.
It wasn't going to be me supporting the variance, but whether or not fire might ask for some pretty more substantive improvements to reduce fire hazard because you're so close to the side lot line.
We'd be happy to put a
Yeah.
new gable roof with comp shingles on it, like the house. We'd be happy to do that. It's more fear planning process that's kept us from doing that.
But
you just have to amend the application to include that.
We appreciate your support to help us get the planning variance.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's what we do with historic preservation. We try to find ways to assist you in getting there with, while still meeting our preservation standards. So,
yeah,
we're on board.
Thank you.
Okay,
we're on board.
Great.
Thank you.
so now we can open it to the public. I'm gonna take the applicants out of our panelist list.
Thank you again.
Everybody.
We'll hop back if you need us.
Okay.
There we go. And we're at attendees. Looks like we have a hand raised. Chad and Leah Salter.
Everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
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 Thank you, Heritage Board, Kristen, everybody, thank you for your time. Just want to reiterate what we spoke about at the last meeting. We are the immediate neighbors at 5 and 1 Murray Lane. That's Jeff and Judy Kirschbaum and Chad and Leah Salter. We cannot be in, we are in full support of this project. We've been in 9 Murray Lane quite a bit, have seen inside, have seen outside. The improvements that the Woos are making to this project are fantastic. It looks like you guys are compromising on things that make a lot of sense. And I just can't tell you how much we are in full support and are excited that they're going to beautify Murray Lane, the neighborhood. The plans seem to fit very well with the neighborhood, certainly with our homes. And we're excited for this project to start. And thank you again for your time and making this work.
Okay. I can't read.
Looks like
Amara Morrison, I'm allowing you to talk.
Good evening, members of the board. My name is Amara Morrison, and I'm an attorney with Wendell Rosen. We represent Lara Datels, who resides at 39 Rancheria Road. We have previously submitted our comments and our concerns in writing to you just prior to your last hearing, and are here again this evening to continue to express concerns about the city's reliance on a categorical exemption for the changes. We do appreciate that the WUs and their architect have made some changes to the plans to comply more in the spirit of the Secretary of Interior's standards. But as the staff report notes, this is now general conformance as opposed to conformance with the Secretary of Interior's standards. So I would urge the board to take into consideration the recommendations that Ms. Holan continues to express to you on the project. I think from a legal perspective, you want conformance with the Secretary of Interior standards as opposed to general conformance. Just want to reiterate that the issue of the view of the cottage being visible from the street not being, it really is not a factor in whether to retain. Ms. Holan expressed that foliage can die or be cut down. And so the retention of the cottage facade is definitely important. We do have concerns, and I know that this isn't the Historic Preservation Board's purview or actually determination about whether to grant a variance or not, but the carport currently encroaches into the side yard, into the setback area close to our client's property. And so we do have concerns about the city's ability to make findings for a variance. And I'll just also note that we do continue to have concerns about access to Murray Lane. And so I think that's an issue that we are planning to go into more detail about with the Planning Commission. But we do appreciate the changes, but just continue to have concerns about the city's reliance on the CEQA exemption. Thank you very much for your attention.
Ms. Morrison, could I ask a question?
Yes.
I wanted to just clarify the difference between general conformance versus the Secretary of Interior standards as you're describing. How is that difference? Because our objective is to conform to the Secretary of Interior standards.
Well, as I was reading the staff report this afternoon and listening to the discussion, it does sound as though Ms. Holan continues to have some recommendations which would bring the project into conformance with the Secretary of Interior standards. I am not a historic consultant, and so I guess I would ask through the chair, I would ask your consultant to determine how much this current configuration complies or does not with the Secretary of Interior standards. I mean, there's been some discussion about the shutters and also recreating a better roof line for the carport, and that the facade should be moved closer to the street or shift the facade more toward the street. So it sounds as though, and these might be factors in your recommendation, for approval if the board is headed in that direction. But I guess to answer your question, I would turn to Ms. Holan because it seems like her statement is that the project is generally in conformance as opposed to in conformance with the Secretary of Interior standards.
Do we have any more questions from the speaker? Okay, there being none, I'm going to remove her permission to talk. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak to the board? Okay. Colhane, I see no more hands raised.
Okay, all right. Then I guess we move on to our discussion.
Well, I would like Jerry to answer the last question about this question of conformance and general conformance.
Okay. And I think, Lilia, in my mind, like the conforming would be that they check off every box and everything's been satisfied. And I think in this case, a lot of the bigger issues have been. I think the removal of that door, the original door on the north facade is probably something that I would say does not conform to the standards. It is on a public facade. It was originally a door, whether it was a back door, front door, we can't say. But it's certainly an original door. It's very old, and I do appreciate the owner's concern that it's in bad shape, but it's a pretty old door. So I think that door and possibly the retention of that roof line there is significant. I think it tells a story about this house, and I think every little increment that's added on. I mean, the addition that's being added on today is going to be a story in 100 years. So I think adding that door and that porch roof would be an important thing to do to be in absolute conformance. The height thing is, again, it's a perception. I would still lower that exercise room ceiling a little bit, and we're just looking at these drawings and they're two-dimensional, and I just take a straight line, and the exercise room is still a couple feet, or I can't remember exactly how much, higher than the original ridge line. I did hear Jared's explanation about that, actually stepping down into the new entry, but even from the perspective of the adjacent property, that front entry, and I do appreciate, I do like the symmetry of this redesign here, that than the red line that I sketched in. I was just looking at mass. I think this works a lot better, but it's still a little higher, and I still think it does read because of the building behind it is massive. So I thought you could easily take the plate height down another 6 inches and maybe lower that roof height a foot or so. If you look at Kristen, do you have on that set of drawings, if you could go to sheet, I think it's A3.1. It's one of the latter, that one right there. See that? In section C, you can see the exercise room. It's fairly significant, even with the 7'6" plate height. 7 foot is a legal plate height. Even if you dropped it to 6'6", you'd still have plenty of ceiling height. It looks like they're building a truss up there. So it gives even more height. I think they could easily spare a foot or two to bring that exercise room down. So it's very clear that the historic farmhouse, even though it's set back another 20 feet more from the property line, is the important structure there. I mean, the main family house is still going to be the largest volume on the property. So those are my 3 areas. I think what they're attempting to do, and we'll eventually get there with the carport, I think they're done a good job by trying to reintegrate that facade. I think they could do a little bit more massaging of that element and get it to work a little bit better so it reads more like a cottage. I think the gable roof would be a significant improvement, and moving the historic facade north closer to the road and leaving the new siding on the southern side of that facade would do some to enhance it. But I think it's important to keep the original materials as worn out as they are. They have the patina, they've got the dings, they've got the small little dimensions, the wavy glass, all that kind of stuff really makes it read as a historic building. So I think those are the three things. Other than that, it's a gorgeous site. I appreciate what they've done to develop the back part of it. And I think it'll be a wonderful home.
I just want to add one more thing. The board is the body that enforces and makes the recommendations for heritage preservation. And the board has created the heritage preservation program. And your enforcement of the standards is laudable and wonderful, and you need to do it to the point where you feel it meets your program, your heritage program. So we have in the past and have always been a little bit flexible to some degree on how you apply these standards, trying to get the big picture in, but to give the individual property owners some ability to meet their needs as well. So I just want to, I'm saying that partly for the benefit of the speaker, so that it's clear that when we say it's in general conformance, it's basically in conformance, but there is some flexibility being allowed to accommodate everyone. So anyway, I just wanted to make that clear.
Thank you. So Jerry, can I ask you again to summarize? So to make it fully conforming to the Department of the Interior, Secretary of Interior standards, you are recommending that we retain the door on the north side?
Yep.
Okay. Are you saying keeping the original door or just keeping a, or?
I think the original door is what you want. You don't want a recreation, and you want it with all its dings and its wavy glass and its nicks and cracks. I mean, a painter can make it look pretty gosh darn good. It can be modified on the interior for whatever the bathroom needs. I'm also concerned about that porch roof. I know it's definitely probably an add-on lean-to kind of a thing, but again, it had some function in the past and, kind of tells a story. So I would leave that too. But I do hear what Kristen's saying is that all of these standards are recommendations. They're recommendations to the deciding body. And so it's really up to the board, to see what works best in the scheme of Larkspur and its housing needs and so on and so forth. So, I mean, if this was, President Roosevelt's home, no, you would not be able to touch that door and you would not be able to remove that roof. But it's not Roosevelt's, it's just the Murray's home. So
yeah.
That's, I guess.
And so the three items are retaining the door, lowering the exercise roof. That's that front
right
second story area, and then sliding the cottage facade further north a couple feet.
Right. The cottage, the cottage facade should be right. Should be the north side. The north edge. The right edge should be the corner. There shouldn't be any new siding to the right of it.
Okay. So that makes it a little more visible too. Right.
It makes it more visible. It looks like a building. I mean, really, you could even pull it forward from the real wall, like 6 inches or a foot, but I don't know how much space is there.
Yeah. Okay.
All
right.
One question about the lowering the exercise roof. Was I understanding that maybe on the edges people would bump their heads, or is that referring to something?
So go back, if Kristen can put the section back up on screen 3.1. Yeah, right there. So Lilia, you can see the exercise room right above the entry there.
Right.
You see how high it is? So right now he's got the plate height. That's the lowest height of the wall at 7'6".
Oh, okay.
The building code allows you to go down to 7'0". But I mean, you'd have to be, you'd have to be a basketball player, 7'6" basketball player to bang your head on that.
Okay. I wasn't quite clear on that. Thank you.
So go ahead, Carol.
Can Jared possibly address what his concern is with lowering that roof line specifically? Can we have him speak again?
I've just allowed him to talk.
Thank you.
Can you hear us?
Yes.
We would like to have windows on the side of that room instead of just one window in the middle. And we wanted the windows, head height of the windows to be at around 6'8" to 7 foot tall to align with the windows around the side. So that's why we have a 7'6" plate height. Could we go to a 7 foot plate height and have a lower window? We could. So if that's what it takes to lower it to 6 inches, we're happy to do that. Any more than that, then the window kind of doesn't work. And we'd like the windows to work.
And it's an exercise room. So ideally we're lifting things over our heads occasionally and not hitting our not hitting our hands on this ceiling.
So, but I mean, a 7 foot plate is not our preferred plate height, but it's not bad. And that would take us down 3'2" from the original. So another 6 inches. And so if that's what it takes, we're happy to do that. And we're happy to put a gable roof on the garage. I think that's a big improvement. We were just skittish about whether we have problems that farther along down the planning process. But I think that's a great improvement.
Right.
Yeah.
The door to what is now the bath, we're proposing to be the bathroom, seems a shame because it's very hard to see from anywhere. But I mean, we can do it. It's not as impossible. I think the roof is kind of a disaster. It's swaying and falling apart. And I think at the last hearing, the board seemed to agree with us to let that go.
Just, from a perspective of the owners, just for your consideration, as you think about these final items, I'd say the areas where we would appreciate the board's consideration the most is around the short door. As I read Ms. Holland's report, it seemed like we were talking about the porch roof and the decking anymore. It's really around that the short little door. We would really appreciate the board's flexibility, as Kristen mentioned, in your interpretation, to allow us not to retain the short door. And it seemed like the porch and the deck was already out of Ms. Holland's report. So we're talking about the short door. We would appreciate your consideration of not having to retain said short door.
Thank you.
How high would the exercise room at the peak be if it's lowered? The plan is too small. I don't have strong enough glasses. So if you brought it down to the plate line down to 7 feet, what would the peak height be for that room?
It's all about the slope of the roof. The slope, I think Jerry would agree, we don't want to lessen the slope. So,
no, I understand. I think that's, I applaud that it's, symmetrical or similar.
It's symmetrical and it has the right slope. So all you can really do to lower it is to lower the plate. And we could lower it to 7 feet. It's not, how high would the ceiling be? Well, if we use the scissor truss as we designed, it would be about, 12 feet tall? Yeah. About 12. If we don't have a flat ceiling. I mean, now we're to keep it a vaulted ceiling.
So the plate line would be 7 feet, which is legal. And then it would rise to 12 feet in the center.
Well, it's rising 12 now.
Roughly, it might be 11'6". It's I don't have it in front of me, but it's falling at 8 and 12 roof slope, and the width is kind of a given.
It's 11 feet 11 inches in the plan now.
Okay, so it'll be 10 foot 7 inches. So 6 inches long.
11 foot.
Okay.
Oh, 11 foot 11. I'm sorry. It'll be 11 foot 5. Sorry.
So it would still have kind of an airy feeling on the inside, even though the plate line is 7 feet.
Right. It's just that we wanted to preserve the windows on the side, but we can do that.
Right. Okay. Okay.
And that would allow for exercising in the middle of the room if you really did have to be lifting up high.
It's not, that's not the problem. We rooms are tall, but not that.
Yeah, we do not stand 7 feet tall. No. So again, we appreciate the board's, the questions you have are very reasonable questions, and I meet these all. I think we're happy to find ways to try to find the right compromise. I think our challenge is more around everything around that small door.
Yeah, I don't want to speak out of school, but it seems like that's what we're down to. It's really, last thing we're talking about is the small door and whether we're prepared to get rid of the porch around it.
Right. I think at the last meeting, you guys had suggested that the porch was probably not necessary to retain. So we assumed if we take up the porch, the door, which is in terrible shape, might go with it. It's going to be a strange facade with 1960s windows being changed, because that the rest of the facade is all changing because they're not historic. So it seems odd to have this one little piece.
I have a question. Aren't you retaining the siding on that wall, the original siding?
We can, but we have to raise that whole wall up. We have to rebuild that entire wing. So we're hoping to retain as much siding as we can. But there's new windows, new walls, new studs.
Well, I think the windows, the replacement windows that you're using are putting more the original character. I mean, the windows that you see right now on the existing elevation, the picture window is definitely not original, and that door is not original. So you're getting rid of two non-original elements and putting in two elements that are a little bit more like the historical one. The third window, is matching the existing window. So I think retaining the door makes a lot of sense. It reads as a Victorian farmhouse.
And
yeah,
you also have a door, and that you can see, at least from the new north elevation, you can see the door on the two-story wing. So it wouldn't be
it's the same family. That's exactly it, Hillary. Those doors are from the same family and the same era. They're the same detail, the same era. That's why I think it's really important to keep it. Yeah. And you'd probably never see the two like you are seeing them here in this elevation, right? This two-dimensional drawing, but they're from the same vintage, and so I think it's important to keep it.
Yeah,
it just shows
giving up one of the doors. I mean, you're already giving up a third door.
Just a question, to be clear, we're in the report, we didn't see any mention again of it might be good to put up that picture of that tar roof again of that porch. I think the porch and the related deck related to that porch. I'm trying to think the picture coming up here. And here we go. Here we go. The porch that tar porch that's off the table. We're just talking about whether we're keeping the small little door or not, right?
Yes.
Okay. Good. I mean, the door, we can keep it. It's the roof is the problem.
Okay. All right.
Right. I'm gonna take them back out of the. So perhaps it's time for each of you to sort of give us a final synopsis of what you're thinking. Mm-hmm. Hillary, you want to start calling on individuals and see
what you think.
I'm sorry, you were frozen.
You're frozen.
Oh, let's start with Sonia. I think she's muted there.
Hi, yeah, thank you. Yeah, I have to say I was a little following this conversation thus far. I was a little bit confused about that tarred low roof over that north deck. But it seems like we've just clarified that. I think I saw Jerry nod her head when I think it was Jared asked, that's off the table, right? We're just talking about the door. And in that case, if that's what I saw, I think that sounds like a good compromise to me. I agree that the historic nature of the door, particularly since it is of a family of doors, makes a lot of sense to really hold on to that part. I'm really happy about the lowering of the massing. And I think that that is fantastic and a great, you know, something that's really great. And then the you know, compromise with the cottage and having the facade onto the carport and, you know, moving it to one side so it looks a little bit coherent, and then having that roof line sort of restored or restructured so that it looks a little bit better, more slope. Like those all sound really good to me. So I guess the only question I would have is that I thought in the beginning of our conversation, Jerry said that porch, that north end porch, was part of the story of the house, and so ideally would be, you know, maintained. And I don't know how strongly she feels about that as part of the whole story of the entire house. That's probably my only question is that it seems to me that it's not a bad compromise to let that go, but you know, I feel like that's also been sort of a side. We kind of get confused about that one piece, and I'm not really sure how to weigh that part of that porch.
Okay, thank you. Lelia, what do you think?
Well, I would echo a lot of what Sonia has said. I think it's a difficult site to build such a large home from a small cottage that had gotten bigger through the years. But I think it's been a successful design overall. And I'm glad that there have been all the changes that have come about from the beginning. I think that porch is something that we could let go of. I don't know, it doesn't seem to go with the rest of the house to me, except for the door, keeping that little short door. Aside from that, I'm very happy to see the cottage preserved in some way along the side of the carport. I think that's a very admirable part of the program. So, and I like the idea of lowering the massing as much as it has been done, but perhaps just a little bit more on that exercise room portion. So I'm pleased with what's developed by this project.
Carol, would you like to weigh in?
Sure. I think I'm going to echo a lot of what's been said. I'm quite pleased with the compromises. Lowering the massing to me has really been the biggest concern from the beginning. And the fact that they're prepared to do that makes me quite happy. And I love retaining the front of the cottage and putting the roof line that was there to really make it look historical. And yeah, the porch, the ceiling over the porch, I understand Jerry's position, but when you look at the house, I can see why the people who are spending their time and money on this don't want it. But I do think maintaining the door retains a piece of history when you look at the house, so it doesn't look like just a brand new house. You realize that there was once a story to be told there. So as long as they're prepared to compromise by having the door there, I'm quite satisfied with where we came out on this.
Yeah. And then to wrap up, I would like to say that I really appreciate all the thought and the quick turnaround and the erection of the story poles and the work that's gone into this current set of plans. And it's really good to see that the Woos and Jared have really listened, and they've brought us a set of designs that I think can work. I agree with everyone that the porch can probably go, but it's important to keep that door because it is part of a family. It's an echo of the door in the original two-story wing. The exercise roof, or that front area being lowered another 6 inches, I think is a decent compromise, because the rest of the roof line is still staying the same height. It's just the exercise room that we're talking about. So And then I also want to just say how I really like the way the cottage has been moved. I remember last meeting, Jared had it on the north side of the house, or the west side of the house. And I like how he's moved it and kind of made like more of a complete carport. Because I was wondering about that carport. I remember asking about that. And this way it feels like you're keeping the idea of a separate building. So I appreciate that. So in my opinion, I think if we can figure out a way to keep that door, that north door, lower the exercise room by 6 inches, and maybe slightly adjust the cottage facade to be a little closer toward Murray Lane. I think we're talking about plans that can be approved and that would conform to the Department of Interior standards. Kristen, do you have anything to add to that?
No, I'm not the decision-making body here. Thank you.
Well, then I guess at this point we should make a motion. And this is where I always have a hard time getting the wording exactly how we want it to be for the motion. So you might have to help me, Kristen. Or does anybody else want to step in and make a motion?
But don't we have like the options, Kristen, we still have those like options that we choose from?
Recommend approval for the application as proposed. Number 2 is recommend approval subject to modifications imposed as a condition of approval, or recommend denial. I think we're moving toward number 2 in our modifications.
Yep.
So we probably should spell those out pretty clearly.
Yep.
Do you want me to do that, or would anyone else like to chime in? Or
Sonia, were you about to do it?
I just wanted to make sure I got had the right option, which I think is option 2, as Hillary read it. That I would move to approve with the condition of the modifications that we've talked about this evening, which include the lowering of that roof line, the carport facade scooched to the Murray Lane side of the cottage facades scooched to the Murray Lane side of the carport, and the keep preservation of the short door.
As well as the roof line for the carport.
That's right, as well as, thank you. Yes, I would
the gable.
those are our conditions of approval.
So I'll second that.
Okay, let's take it to a vote. All in favor of the motion?
We should call out names. I'm going to do that for you.
Okay, I'll start with Carol. Carol, are you in favor? You heard the
I did. Yeah, and I am
proposed action.
Correct. Yes.
Lilia, how about you?
I'm in favor of the motion as stated.
Okay. Sonia, of course you are, because you made the motion, and I am as well. I'm in favor of it.
So the motion passes 4-0 with 1 abstention. Well, 1 absentee. So Richard Storick is not available tonight. Okay.
Good.
Okay.
All right. I think we have a hand raised still. Is that Jared? Are you still trying to talk? No.
Well, he's muted, but his hand is up.
Oh, fair.
So we weren't trying to talk. We're good.
Okay. Great.
You know, I just also wanted to thank you guys. I know Hillary did for everybody, but truly so appreciative of the thought, effort, and love that is clearly going into this project. And I hope you have many happy years in that beautiful home.
I second that.
Yeah,
I really appreciate it.
Yep. Yeah, it's going to be a gorgeous, gorgeous home.
Mm-hmm.
It's a beautiful setting.
Yeah.
Going on.
All right then. Shall we move on? Business items, board member reports?
Well, I had one report. I wanted our members to know that there's been a small group of us, Sally Ann Wilson, myself, and Marilyn River, former board members, working on this historic marker project, which, and Sonia too has been working on that. What it is we wanted to encourage people to know more about our history through markers along some of our walking paths or bike paths. And today I did get to speak with the Public Works Director, Julian, and he will let us know exactly where we could put these markers. And we'll have photographs and text, for example, talking about the history of the railroads coming through town. The electric power station was a big draw on the bike path down William. And then a couple probably at Piper Park, which would feature the boardwalk area, as well as just the general use by the Native Americans of the creek for their life at that time. And probably one at Niven Park over there by Bonnier. Talk a little bit about that development. So that's what we're pursuing it. And the funding for this will come from the Larkspur Community Foundation Historic Fund. There's a historic fund that was set up by a former board member and the author, one of the authors of the Larkspur Past and Present, Helen Heitkamp. She had given money to establish a historic fund. So part of the money would come from that. The other part will probably ask for money from we have a little stash of about, I think it's $40,000 from book sales that the treasurer has set aside, this Larkspur treasurer. And maybe we could do some matching or use some of those funds for this project. So we welcome your input and ideas, and we'll pass along to all of you proposals for each of the sites so you can add comments to it. But that's progressing. And the other, we originally were going to use that money to have the Larkspur Past and Present reprinted because it's no longer for sale anywhere. And lo and behold, we found there are about 60 books at the Public Works Department. So we don't have to reprint the book. But I'm hoping you all have a copy, and if not, I'll certainly get one to you. So let me know about that. And
the markers or the plaques, are they similar like to the ones like in Tiburon, Belvedere?
Yeah,
okay.
We've been talking to the people that put those up, and
those are nice.
Very
company.
nice.
They're pretty big too. They're like 18 by, I mean, they're pretty good size.
Yeah, there's two sizes, small and large, and it kind of depends what the pictures are you're putting in the text. I tend to think we might end up with large ones if they'll fit in the space.
Okay.
We want to.
An exciting project.
I think it's great. And I think it's especially if we can do like some sort of walking tour map that you can go from sign to sign, but that's the future.
Right. The other thing that it's just kind of one little thing I'm thinking of is in Tiburon, they changed their bike path to be called the Old Railroad Trail. Love it if we could call our bike paths the Old Railroad Trail, but it would mean renaming it in some sense, but it gives a bit of history to what we just bike path.
Yeah.
Kind of a subtle way of letting people know about our history.
Yeah.
So
I think that's great.
Talk to the Park and Recreation Commission about that, because I think it comes under their purview.
The other thing is that years ago, when my son was in, I forget, 3rd grade, we went up to, was it Owen Poly? And they had an educational consultant that told the kids about the history of the buildings and the site. And he gave me his card. I don't know if he's still there, but it might be good to bring in somebody from, the Grayton Rancheria or someone from the Miwok group, especially with all the materials that were found down in Rose Lane when they were excavating. And it'd be nice to get some input from that group of people as well.
That's a great idea. I'd love to have that name. Yeah.
Okay. Would you like me to see if I can dig up that card or reach out to that person?
Yeah,
okay.
That'd be great.
All right, great.
So that's a little report.
I think we also have a general contact for historic finds that we can reach out to, and if you want to talk to them, if you can't get anywhere with the docent that you met.
Okay.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Let's see, moving on to the approval of the draft meeting notes from our last meeting. I think Kristen included that in our packet. Hopefully everyone had a chance to review those. It's amazing how 2.5 hours worth of meeting gets distilled down into like 2 pages of quick read, you know?
I thought they were great notes, I have to say.
I did too.
I really, compliments to Tony, was it, who did the notes, like really helpful and thorough.
Yep.
Yeah.
Very thorough. Yeah. So do we move to accept them? Is that?
Yes.
Yeah.
To approve them? Well, I move that we approve the Larkspur Heritage Preservation Board regular meeting minutes of February 10th, 2022.
I second that motion.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
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 Okay. 4 in favor, 1 in absence. Rich is out.
Perfect.
All right. Is there anything else, Kristen, that we need to go over tonight?
I don't believe so.
Like future meeting schedules?
Well, a future meeting will be good, but I'm going to have to get in touch with you when I have a better idea of when that schedule will be needed. I have a project at 47 Madrone, which was one of the 3 houses Rich discussed in his presentation, Richard Cunningham, last week, the last meeting. That one has a pretty substantive remodel proposed as well.
Really? Okay.
And I'm got to start the second review and see if they're ready for you yet or not. We also still have another application outstanding at 7 Ardmore that's sort of on hold. They're trying to decide how to deal with the historic preservation issues that have been raised with them.
Right. I know that property. Okay. Well, I guess then you'll just let us know when.
Yeah. I'll get in touch with you after I get a good look at this project, because if it's close enough, I can put it before the board, even if I'm still working on details at the commission level.
Okay. Okay.
Right.
So this proposal for the house at 9 Murray Lane will go to the Planning Commission.
Yes. I'm going to have to email them tonight before I go and ask for revised garage plans so I can run them by fire.
Oh.
Kristen, do you want these plans back? I haven't touched them. I mean, I looked at them, but I haven't written on them. Do you think?
I'm sure the applicant wouldn't mind producing fewer copies if it's convenient for you all, but don't go out of your way.
I'll drop them off.
We can get more.
Okay. I'll have to make sure I didn't mark them up, but I don't think.
Well, thank you for attending tonight, Jerry. That was very helpful.
Yeah, thank
Jerry,
you.
it really is.
Yeah. Well, it looks like it's going to be a great project.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It will be nice.
In large part thanks to you, you were very persuasive with them.
And persistent, which I appreciated.
Yeah, I really appreciated that too. Like getting a sense of like the most important things to that was really so helpful.
Yeah. So where should we drop these plans, Kristen?
Well, if you bring them back, they need to go back on the back porch in the box.
Okay. Okay. All right.
Just put a little note that says for Kristen.
Okay.
Hey, Kristen, I have a quick question. Is there any discussion about meetings starting to happen
in person? Actually, yes, that has come up recently, but it's still tentative. We'll see. Could be in another month or so.
I'm looking forward to meeting the board in person. So.
I know. Great. Yeah. So, and Kristen, anything news on staffing at the planning department?
Well, I have a new assistant. Well, he's basically an assistant planner. We call him a planning consultant. He's not very experienced yet, and I'm working on teaching him how to help me out and how to get the job done. So that's promising. I believe the city manager has entered into contract discussions with a future planning and building director, whom I'm not sure it's really being announced publicly yet, so I won't mention the name, but they are someone local from another city here in Marin. And there's some possibility of getting another planner who has worked around Marin as well and has a lot of great experience. It's been really tough to attract someone who can replace me so I can retire. So I'm hopeful for this individual. We'll see. And if it works out, we would be able to overlap for a little while. So I would not leave her figuring it out. We could have a smoother transition.
Sounds like they need 3 people to replace you.
Somebody once said that to me who works here, and I always thought that was funny, but I kind of am starting to believe it after trying to train people.
Right. Well, somehow I had in mind that March 1st was when you were originally.
That was my original timing, and I rescinded that retirement date because it was pretty obvious I would be leaving everybody, including most of the staff here, high and dry, and I didn't want to do that.
Well, thank you for staying on.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So now we're shooting for the end of summer.
Wow. That's
okay. Okay.
I am taking a pretty extended vacation though in July. My daughter's graduating from Glasgow University.
Oh, how wonderful.
Wow. I remember when she started. That's crazy.
I know, it's been 5 years.
Wow.
Almost.
5 years. Oh my gosh.
Wow.
And she's already gone to 4 years of Cal Poly, her undergrad. So yeah.
And what is her major, or what is
she's gonna be a veterinarian. She's already passed the tests.
Wow.
She's just finishing up the cleanup year. It's like where they get all their assignments, kind of like rotations for a doctor, only it's abbreviated. She gets a year of it. She's already been working in doctors' offices and doing a lot of side volunteers and assignments. So she's kind of ahead of the game.
Is she going to stay over there or return home?
No, she's coming back
to California.
Looking forward to it. Oh yeah, they want to live in Marin. She's their boyfriend. They have an apartment together in San Rafael.
Oh.
So when she's home, she stays with him. Yeah.
So we might have a new veterinarian for our pets.
Yeah, I'll recommend her when she's landed for sure. She's interviewing with 3 different veterinary clinics. So we'll see.
Okay.
That's exciting.
Yeah.
I wonder if she does dental work.
They all do dental work, I think.
I tell you, that's a lucrative field.
Very, very, yeah.
Especially for horses. You know,
Oh, really?
When I get my horse's teeth floated, it's, you know, without the extra things they throw in like shots, it's still over $300.
Yep.
So
yeah. Well, do they, like the dogs, they want to put them under an anesthesia?
There's no, it would not be safe for a dentist to try to saw down the horse's teeth if they were not drugged heavily.
Right.
They literally take what looks like a giant Dremel tool that has a casing around it, so only one side slightly exposed, and then they run it on their teeth, top and bottom, to wear them down. It replaces the wear they don't get because they're not chewing on a lot of forage like they would in the wild.
Yeah. Wow.
Their teeth keep growing.
Only $300. That's a good deal compared with the
with a dog. Yeah, and there are people who just do that for a living. They just go around and do dental clinics. That's their whole income.
Yeah,
they'll do 5 horses in a day. Yeah.
So how long are you going over there for?
Probably 2 weeks.
Great.
And I have 3 weeks blocked out just to try and figure out what days to get in that period.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah. Yeah, I've been doing a lot of traveling around Scotland and Ireland and Western Europe with my daughter. It's been really fun.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
I had a daughter over there too. It was super fun. So it's fun to have an excuse to go and travel.
It is. Yeah. It's great. Yeah, it's going to be hard to get back once she's home. Unless she wants to go with me, like do a mom-daughter trip still. We'll see.
As long as
Oh,
you
you
pay,
will.
she probably will say yes.
Right.
I buy the
right.
ticket, yeah.
Yeah, that's
I'll go.
kind of how it goes.
Seems to work
Well-
with my daughters.
Yeah.
Well, I have another Zoom shortly, so I
Okay.
say good night.
All right.
Thank you all.
Righty.
Good
Good
night,
And this
everybody.
for all of us.
night, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Oh, I
Bye.
forgot to stop.
Bye.
recording.